Interestingly, Burt Reynolds turned down the role of James Bond. Yeah. Now, there was a time when Burt Reynolds was a clean cut and he wore tuxes and so on and so forth. Could he have pulled it off? Hmm. You know, it's been labeled towards British men, and I don't know if Burt Reynolds would have necessarily. He was a leading man, but he was kind of like, was it that kind of suave? Was it really like debonair with the fancy car and the whole nine? I don't know. I don't know. When I think of Roger Moore and I think of Burt Reynolds, I don't know. That's kind of not in the same playing field style wise. Style wise. Acting wise, you can debate who was better, but when you play a character like James Bond, it requires a certain sophistication. And Burt Reynolds was always kind of like what I thought of as a middle of the road cat who one part tough guy, one part smart aleck, and a guy that kind of was like a hybrid of different things, but I couldn't necessarily see him being this debonair dude with the clothes and the whole nine like that. I don't think it quite hit that way. But it was interesting. He said he was offered the role. He said he regretted it. He said, but he couldn't see an American playing James Bond. When you think about some of the roles he was in, I remember, obviously Smokey and the Bandit. That was one. Deliverance. Those kind of roles. North Dallas 40. He had different kind of roles. Sharky's Machine. Sometimes when he played a detective, a tough guy role, kind of like, but he was like, he wasn't. He didn't have the sneer and the snare that Clint Eastwood or Charles Bronson had. He was kind of like a broke version of them, but yet he had like a leading man appeal. It's kind of hard to put it in perspective because sometimes you see some actors and people and it's kind of like, well, Burt Reynolds was not, he didn't have that certain type of vibe that say Jack Nicholson did, which got Nicholson over, but yet Burt could be in them roles where, he had a role that he could play. The Longest Yard. He had some movies where he was one of those dudes that it was slightly better than middle of the road, but it was never top tier. Wasn't low tier, but it wasn't top tier. So he kind of yo-yoed in a certain position and capacity. But this is interesting that he was offered James Bond and he turned it down. And I don't know how that would have worked. I don't know. I don't